Let's bring in Nationals Senator for Queensland now, the former Resources Minister Matt Canavan, joining us from Biloela, famous town now in Queensland. Thanks for joining us, Matt.
So good to be with you, Chris.
Now, first up, I want to go to some breaking news out of your home state concerning you, of course, and that is they've distributed the preferences in the Senate count in Queensland. Of course, you were elected, no trouble as we expected. It was all about what was going to happen with a crucial last spot between Pauline Hanson and your former colleague now, Amanda Stoker. So sadly, Senator Amanda Stoker has missed out on that spot. Pauline Hanson has been returned to the Senate. So what's your commentary on that outcome?
Well, obviously an unhappy result for me and the LNP, but I do want to pay tribute to the work that Amanda Stoker did and will continue to do, I'm sure. She fought very hard for Queensland, and this was a very close race. We don't know exactly how close because the distribution of preferences hasn't been published yet, but we took it right down to the wire, and that's a testament to the hard work Amanda put in, because it's pretty hard, obviously, competing against someone of the notoriety of Pauline Hanson. I do congratulate Pauline and all the candidates that won or lost. It's a great honour to run for the nation's parliament. It's a great honour for me to have been re-elected. I'll just keep fighting for people for another 6 years now.
Yeah, look, let's talk about Amanda Stoker, because she is a ripper. She's got a superior intellect. She's very, very courageous. She's made a big impact in a short time. The coalition, we know, can't afford to lose leading women who, well, she was on the front bench before the election. She's obviously cabinet minister material at the very least. Would you support her trying to get back into parliament, either through the lower house or through the Senate again next time?
Well, Chris, I don't think we've seen the last of Amanda Stoker. I'm sure if she wants to, we'll come back in some form and capacity, and I'd absolutely 100% support her and back her to do that. Look, sometimes things happen for reasons. She's got a young family, so I'm sure her young daughters will love seeing a bit more of her for now, but she's still young, and I'm sure she's got a huge contribution to make to Australian political life if she chooses.
I think you're right, and I'm certain most of our viewers will agree with that too. So we commiserate with Amanda, and we wish her all the best and hope that she does get back into politics somehow, and congratulate Pauline Hanson as well along the way. Let me show you a graph. I was just referring to the NEM. You're like me, you follow this stuff on your app all the time. It just demonstrates where our power is being sourced from at the moment. 57% coal, 23% gas. There's more than 80% right now coming from fossil fuels. Solar less than 1%, wind just over 1%, and hydro, most of that's in Tasmania. They've got it lucky down there, good on them. But this just shows the absolute absurdity of so many of these politicians from both sides of Parliament, I've got to say, who talk this nonsense about this renewables nirvana and how we're all going to have all these green jobs. It just can't be done. We just don't have a system that's anywhere near being able to deliver that.
You're exactly right, Chris, and I just checked those figures before coming on too, but you beat me to the punch. 80%, 8 and 10 of our power coming from fossil fuels right now, these terrible fossil fuels. And, you know, if we turn our back on that, there is no other alternative. And those politicians out there continuing to propagate this myth that somehow just some more investment in batteries or pumped hydro, or I don't know, hydrogen doesn't get as much mention now, seems to have slipped off the radar. They've got to be pinned down by the media. Tell them exactly how many batteries do we need? How much? Because sometimes you don't get wind or sun for days. And so do we need to install the batteries in place to cover the system for days, just in the odd chance that happens? And how's that going to happen? It just cannot work. The fundamental issue here, Chris, is we are reaping the sowing of net zero emissions. When you commit to close down an industry like coal and gas, guess what happens? People don't invest in it. And so people aren't maintaining their coal-fired power stations. They're not building new gas-fired power stations. And then we have a shortage. Those out there saying somehow coal is unreliable, how come none of the countries that we export huge amounts of coal to are experiencing blackouts? They seem fine. Chris, they're doing really, really well on our coal because they're investing in new coal-fired power stations. They've built new ones and they're reliable. An old car doesn't work, new ones do. We should build a new coal-fired power station.
Look, the inanity of this debate does my head in. The fact that it's conducted in a fantasy world, no one wants to deal with reality. I mentioned the ABC last night. Not one person on the panel prepared to point out that it's the push to renewables that's delivered this. Their answer seems to be more renewables, more transmission lines, and these batteries, as you say, that just physically can't solve the problem. And I want to show you what a Liberal Party, a right of centre colleague of yours said about you 2 years ago. Matt Canavan, of course, the Treasurer and Energy Minister in New South Wales. He said we need to make decisions based on the engineering and the economics, not ideology and mythology or Matt Canavan's wacky maths. Arguing we need to build a new coal-fired power station is like saying we should get rid of Netflix and go back to Blockbuster Video. Well, it's not much good having a video player or Netflix if there's no electricity. And he just had to urge and welcome back into the system these same coal-fired power stations that he's desperate to get rid of.
Well, Matt Keane's been in charge of the New South Wales electricity system, and he's failed. He's failed to be able to guarantee people the option to use their power at night this week in New South Wales. In a developed country like ours, that is a national scandal and embarrassment, and he really should go. I mean, you can't... I mean, Chris, 170 people have lost their jobs in South Australia at an iron forge this week, and there'll be hundreds more because of this fiasco. It's about time some of the high-paid officials and ministers responsible for this also pay a price, because how are we going to improve unless there are consequences for actions? And
well,
Matt Keane has got it wrong, totally wrong.
I was about to ask what I thought might have been a provocative question, but you've gone there unilaterally. You're saying that your Liberal National Party colleague, your Liberal colleague at least, Matt Keane, the Treasurer and Energy Minister of New South Wales, should resign over this fiasco?
Well, I think not just him, all the energy ministers should go. Lily D'Ambrosio down in Victoria, she's had her head in the sand for ages. The heads of the AEMO and AER, where are they? People have got to be held to account. I mean, it's not good enough that the working class of this country pay the price of this ineptitude and nobody in the ruling class does. They're responsible, and they have delivered this. So there has to be some kind of accountability. And look, the other problem here for the future is Matt Keane has got a busy job as Treasurer, and look, I've no problem with him continuing as that. That's a matter for Dom Perrottet. But we really need a full-time energy minister, given the crisis we're facing, and we need a minister who can credibly encourage the coal and gas industries to invest again. That's what we need right now. And as you've just played, Matt Keane has denigrated the coal and gas industries, compared them to video stores. He's desperately now asking them to increase production and hypocritically asking Santos to get going on Narrabri. But he can't he's got no credibility to provide that message. So for the good of this country, the good of our biggest state, we need a fresh face in there who can drive the change necessary to encourage more investment in the coal and gas that is going to keep our lights on.
Senator, thanks for joining us. Have a good weekend.